You are now politicking with Po on PoPolitickin.com.
I don't know how y'all see it, but when it comes to the children, Wu-Tang is for the children. We teach the children. You know what I mean?
Welcome back to PoPolitickin.com, your home for self-help meets hip-hop. Make sure you go on Spotify. We're on Google Play, Apple Podcasts. Type in Po Politickin. Listen to our interviews for the past 11 years. 1212. I'm a place to be with Braxton J George. How you doing, bro?
Hey, what's up, my man? How you doing?
I'm fantastic. So I see you do a lot of things. A wrestler, actor, producing major, doing a lot of things over here.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. I do a little bit of everything.
So where are you from? What's your hometown?
I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada, bro.
Okay. So how did you get involved with wrestling? What made you want to wrestle?
Man, it's kind of started when I was in diapers, bro. My grandpa, who I would see in the summers in California, in Orange County, California, Moreno Valley. He would watch SmackDown every Friday and Raw every Monday night. And man, I just remember as a kid being captivated. And I just remember always looking forward to those Friday and Monday nights because, one, it was bonding time with my grandpa, but two, like I was just there was nothing really else like it on TV, because when you're a kid, you find what cartoons you like and you find what superhero stuff is on but man, there was just nothing like wrestling because for me, wrestling was like a combination of all that stuff that I like, that the athleticism and sports from basketball and stuff, but also like the fighting and violence and action that was on like my favorite Saturday morning cartoons. So I had always envisioned myself being a wrestler growing up, but it wasn't until like I was 13 years old that I actually like just on a random day just Googled like professional wrestling in Las Vegas. And I found a couple schools in town that taught, and the first school that I looked at taught people like 12 years old and up, and I had to sign like a waiver and everything. But I went to my parents with it, and they were like, wow, he's really serious about this. Because, when I told them, I might want to be a wrestler, like, they'd always kind of just blow it off, like, nah, he's not serious, like, he's going to grow out of it. But when I went up to them with this idea of going to wrestling school, they were like, well, I mean, should we, I guess we should let him do it, because, he found this school all on his own. So we took it, we checked it out, and my parents signed the waiver, and they were paying training for me every month, and that's just how I kind of started in the wrestling business. I was 13 years old.
Yeah, so how long have you been training now?
I think combined it's been 5 years, because I stopped after 2016 when I graduated high school. I stopped to go to college, and because as soon as I graduated high school, I went to Chicago. I moved to Chicago like immediately after I graduated high school, and I spent 2 years out there, came back, and when I came back, there was just I had this giant kind of gape in my schedule. Like I was working, but between work, I was just like, man, I want to be around wrestling. So I went to another school, Future Stars of Wrestling, and that's kind of the biggest promotion out here in Las Vegas. So that's kind of like the premier place to be in Las Vegas, and it's kind of growing into one of the biggest promotions in the West Coast. And it's because, they have a great staff and they have a great way of running things. I got to get, for the last, year, I've been trained by Kenny King and D'Lo Brown, and those guys have become my mentors, and we've had other guys like Rob Van Dam and Sabu come in and teach classes, and Impact, whenever they come into Las Vegas, we have a working relationship with them, and I've actually gotten to work on the production crew for Impact Wrestling 6 different occasions. So lots of opportunities came through Impact Wrestling in the last year. But combined, all of my time combined, it's been 5 years, I think, in the ring, starting from when I was 13 up until now, and I'm 21 years old now.
Yeah, that's what's up. So how would you describe, I saw your character, you say Action Braxton, so how would you describe your character to people?
That's right, Action Braxton, and the thing about it is the idea of the character is almost in the name. And it's in my catchphrase, lights, camera, Braxton, because any show that I get on becomes my show. And that's me kind of taking that element from theater and acting and being an actor and implementing that in the wrestling world, but doing that in my own way and in my own fashion, because nobody can take the spotlight like I take the spotlight. You know, no one can be a star like I'm a star, because anytime I pop up on any show, you're no longer watching a regular show. You're no longer watching FSW. You're no longer watching whatever the name of the promotion is. You're watching Lights, Camera, Braxton. You're watching my show.
This is up. And what separates you from other wrestlers, though?
I think I in anything that I try to do, I try to be what I call eclectic, and all that really means is I take inspiration from so many different forms of media and art. When I get in the ring, it's not just inspired by shit that I see in wrestling. It's inspired by music. It's inspired by movies. It's inspired by all this other stuff. So when I get in the ring, you're seeing a mix of martial arts. You're seeing stuff that I might have picked up and got inspired through by watching anime or listening to music or whatever. Something that might have made me feel the way that I let that out in the ring. It comes from a bunch of different ways because, like I said, I like to be eclectic in everything that I do. So, you know, the way that my mind works and the way that all the things that I surround myself with, a bunch of different forms of art that I have access to and that I access in my everyday life, I transform that into wrestling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll say, what are some of your favorite books and movies?
Oh man, I'm a big Marvel fan. Marvel and DC, but really, I've been very into Marvel lately. I've been super into Batman comic books. I think Batman stories are some of the best stories in comic books. I really love Iron Man stories too. I read a lot of Iron Man. Spider-Man's my favorite, hands down, of all time, superhero. But growing up as a kid, I read a lot of manga. I read a lot of Naruto. I read a lot of Dragon Ball Z. Man, Dragon Ball Z was basically like my entire childhood. And I think more so lately, I've been getting into a lot of like niche stuff that you don't really see on the mainstream market so much. Short films, indie films. But a lot of that has been action dramas, I think. Action dramas and comedy. And a ton of ways to take comedy in situations that aren't comedic, if that makes sense. Because when I first started acting, I didn't just train in like the traditional method. The first acting training that I ever really got was improv comedy. And that was taking any situation and finding the joke in it. And that kind of I kind of put that into wrestling too, because anytime I wrestle, there is an element, and any person who wrestles can tell you that sometimes things don't go the way you think they're going to go, or the fans will give you something. Because when we're out there, we aren't just doing a choreographed dance. Yeah. You know, there are certain elements that a crowd might present, or that a vibe in the ring might present, or that something might happen in the ring that brings a completely different element to what you're doing. So, like, improv comedy was a huge piece into how I crafted my identity as a performer too.
Yeah, I guess I'll ask you about your acting, and I know you into production too, so you can talk about that.
That's right. Yeah. That all came from my 2 years in Chicago. I still haven't finished my degree in TV executive producing yet, but that's actually what I'm working on right now, is actually going back to school in Chicago. But yeah, man, my time in Chicago was priceless. I learned a lot about how to write for television, how to put together a live television studio set, which came in big use when I started working on the production end of wrestling. Because really what a wrestling show is, it's a live studio production. You know, the ring, the Tron, the audio, the everything. It's a live television studio production.
So do wrestlers get do they get SAG cards? Like
side cards? What do you mean by
no,
side
like
cards?
SAG cards. You know, like the actors get SAG cards.
Oh, SAG cards, man.
I just thought about that. Now they should. Do they or no?
Did you hear that giant thing that was on the internet about like all of the fucked up things about the wrestling business, that like wrestlers don't have insurance, aren't are signed on as independent contractors and not employees? Bro, there are so many things that wrestlers don't have that we should have. We do not have SAG cards at all. Not at all.
So even if y'all on TV, no.
Yeah, no. I mean, not to my knowledge. I don't think anybody signed to it because the thing is, wrestling doesn't have to. Wrestling promotions that work on television don't have to go through the SAG unions because it's not considered like it's not considered a it's not really considered like a stage or acting thing. It's not considered like a screen acting or stage acting thing. It's still considered a sport.
Mm.
So there isn't really a call for wrestlers to have SAG cards. That's a great point though, because if wrestling companies did have to go through the SAG union, there's a ton of places that probably wouldn't be able to run anymore.
Mm. And then what do you say your goals for your career are right now?
My biggest goals right now, all I've ever really wanted to do in anything is carve my own niche. Everybody right now is so focused on I have to be the best at this, I have to be the best at that. And that's fine. Like, that's what makes wrestling great. I think wrestling's best when it's competitive. But the thing about, like, you should always strive to be your best, right? You should always strive to do the best that you can do. But the thing about being the best is you're never going to be the best, because there's always going to be someone who's faster, who's stronger, who can do this or that better. My whole thing is I've always wanted to carve my own niche and my own name and my own special flavor. You know, I was reading something the other day that really, really spoke to me, and it was, there is always going to be greater than and less than. And you're always going to be greater than or less than something unless you are different than. And because being different than is an entirely different dimension of good or bad. And my whole thing is, if I can be different than, then I have an entirely different way of generating value in myself. So that, I think, more than anything, my biggest thing is I just want to carve my own niche in everything that I do, in acting, in wrestling, in theater, in everything that I do, in writing, everything. I just want to carve my own niche and be recognized for my specific thing that I do that's different from everything else.
And I was going to ask you, what are you doing as far as like time management to balance everything out and work on everything?
It's hard, man. I think that's the curse of being a multifaceted person, is that because of all the things you do, you have to really kind of juggle what things you put focus on and what things you don't. Like I said, when I turned 18, when I graduated from high school, I had to change my focus from wrestling to acting in college, because ultimately acting and pursuing a career in film and television was what helped me go to college. Mm-hmm. And once I had to leave college for a while, then the focus became wrestling again. And so, like, the focus and where you put your energy is always going to kind of shift when you have so many different things that you do, because sometimes it's not going to be the right time for one thing that you want to do. Sometimes it's the right time for the other thing. And sometimes you have to know what time to make that shift. What time when one thing isn't there. And you'll know it, because you can always sense when something isn't serving you anymore, or when something isn't right for what you're trying to do, or when something doesn't feel right for the direction that your life is going in. And so I've always just kind of had to analyze, okay, what is happening in my life right now? What are my goals right now? How do I feel right now about what I'm doing? And where's the universe pushing me? Because there are certain variables in your life that you can't control. There's certain things in life that's going to put you in a certain position where you can't do something, or you have to do something that's different from what you thought you were going to do. So that's always been me, man, is just juggling what should get my focus at what times and what is right for the circumstances that I'm in. And I think that goes for any person who has multiple careers, because it's not an easy thing at all to do.
Have you had any injuries in wrestling?
Oh yes, absolutely, man. I'm glad you said that, because when I actually came back to wrestling, I had to really kind of look at myself and decide if it was something that I really wanted to do, because in the summer of 2017, I suffered an injury. I had a wrestling match. I was booked, and I was booked for a show here in Vegas. And after the match, I was having a real hard time with my arm, and I went to the doctor and found out I had torn my rotator cuff and my labrum in my left shoulder. And I didn't really know what that meant. And the more research that I did and the more people that I saw had that injury, the more I saw, oh, this is actually a kind of serious thing. Luckily, it wasn't a major tear and I didn't have to get surgery on it or anything. But I really never ever in all my years of wrestling up until that point, I had never really had to deal with an injury. And man, an injury can actually ruin your life a little bit. It's kind of crazy, because it changes everything about the way that you're able to work out. It changes everything about how you're able to go about your daily life in general. And, of course I had to stop wrestling, and I had to go back to Chicago, where it's cold as shit, and you can feel that cold in your bones, man. And this isn't an injury that you just get over. You have to rehab it, and you have to, you have to take care of it, and you have to take great care to not re-aggravate it, because that's an injury that literally can put people on the shelf for a long time. And there's some people who I saw had that same injury and wrestled still with that same injury and just had to change their styles. I actually remember talking when Impact was in town. I was talking with the homie Rich Swann. And he was telling me he had that same exact injury, and he never wrestled the same since.
So how did you injure yourself with that injury?
Man, I don't even know, because I watched that same match back and I couldn't even tell you. And it's one of those things too, where sometimes you'll get hurt and you'll have no idea how. If I had a clue, I'd say it was because I was wrestling in a boxing ring. and
the ropes are harder.
If you talk to any wrestler, they'll tell you wrestling in boxing rings absolutely sucks. That shit is garbage. That shit is trash. But after about a year or so of casually rehabbing it and just going about my daily life, I wasn't really thinking about wrestling too much until I had come back to Vegas from Chicago, and I was around wrestling a lot. And I just said fuck it, it's now or never. I'm either gonna try and do this again, or I'm just gonna not do it anymore. And when I started training again and starting to get that confidence back into wrestling, when you get hurt, you never know what it's gonna be like to do that again, because you have a bunch of fears in your mind about what it's going to be like, and you have a bunch of fears in your mind about re-aggravating that injury. Because everything about what you went through having that injury stays in your mind as you're getting ready to go back and do that thing again. So when I came back to wrestling, man, for me it was a big deal, because I didn't know if I was ever going to wrestle again after getting hurt like that. But I'm happy to say that I made a successful recovery, and that I was able to pick back wrestling again.
So what would you say to somebody that wanted to be a wrestler?
The first thing I would say is that this business is hard. I mean, I started when I was 13 years old, and there were so many things about the business that I wasn't that I was aware of, but I wasn't conscious of, if that makes sense. You know, there are certain things about wrestling that are just realities, and it's a hard business. But at 13 years old, I was also able to allow my passion, my love to carry me past all of those harsh realities. And so for anyone that wants to be a wrestler, man, all it really takes is unshakable belief in yourself. Unshakable belief in yourself and unshakable perseverance. Because, man, wrestling will beat the shit out of you, both mentally and physically. There are days that you're going to feel like, man, I suck. This sucks. I don't want to do it. But you have to make it past those days, and you have to keep showing up, and you have to keep working really, really hard. And eventually you will see growth. And with growth comes confidence. And with confidence comes ability to perform. So for anyone that wants to be in wrestling, I think perseverance and belief is 100% necessary, because anybody can do it, man. There's nothing that separates, me from anybody else. I just believed in myself, and I just worked really, really hard. But at that same time, that's why not everybody can be a wrestler, because if it was easy, everybody would do it.
What would you like to say to your fans and supporters?
Man, I just want to say to anybody who's ever watched me wrestle, anybody who's ever seen my stuff on social media and, given a like, to all the people that I've seen in locker rooms like Rich Swann and Cheeseburger, who have, shown me love and been good to me. And to, like you said, all of my fans that see me on social media, I will continue to do my best to put out stuff that you guys like. And I'm going to do my best to be the best version of myself for all of you, because my biggest goal in life since I was a kid was to be the ultimate entertainer. And that also comes with being able to provide the best entertainment brand possible. And that's what I'm trying to do for you guys. I appreciate the support. And I hope that anybody who's checking out this interview who may not have heard of me before, you're hearing me for the first time, join the ship, join the bandwagon.
Why should they?
Because what I do, you're not going to see nowhere else. The type of person I am, the amount of things that I do, the number of things that I do, and the way that I do it, you're not going to be able to see it nowhere else.
All right, man, I want to say thanks for coming through politicking with me.
All right. I appreciate the rub, brother.
Yeah, you want to tell me your social media and everything?
Yeah. You guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Braxton J George. And I'm on Facebook too, Braxton J George.
PoPolitickin.com.
What's up, y'all? This is Action Braxton, and right now you are listening to Po Politickin. Keep it locked, because you're about to take out Lights, Camera, Braxton.
Thanks for listening to PoPolitickin.com, a self-help meets hip-hop brand. If you are an artist or business owner wanting to be featured on PoPolitickin.com, contact us at PoPolitickin@gmail.com. That's PoPolitickin@gmail.com, or text 760-717-5803. If you're a listener that enjoys the show and wants to support, you can donate to PoPolitickin.com via PayPal.com. Please send donations to PoPolitickin@gmail.com. Any amount will be helpful in continuing to create quality content and shows. As always, check out PoPolitickin.com for past episodes. Make sure you subscribe to Po Politickin on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play.